So the big question. All this is great information. How do I change children's behavior? Well, we look at emotional development, healthy regulation of feelings. We look at social development, healthy interaction with others. We look at ethical development, helping kids do the right thing even when no one's watching, because of healthy relationships and because of good, strong role models. So you might be saying, well, this is all great, but where do I start? That's a great question. You want to know why? Because I am often called in as a consultant to help classroom teachers with discipline. And the principal will say, you need to go watch this teacher, and you need to give her a lot of tools for her toolbox. And that sort of makes me twitch. And the reason why that makes me twitch is because behavior change is not as simple as just having a good tool. So I'm going to give you a really good example that I give all the time. I tell a teacher in a workshop, an early childhood teacher, use eye contact. And you'll notice that in every workshop I do, I use very strong eye contact. Why? Because I know when I'm looking at you, I'm strengthening the relationship. I'm helping you pay attention. And I'm decreasing the likelihood that you're going to have side conversations. So I'll tell teachers in a workshop, please teach the children eye contact and use eye contact. And 2 teachers will hear that and they're like, oh, I love that idea of eye contact. And so one teacher goes back into the classroom, and every time when the kids come in the classroom, she gets down on her knees and she gets down on their level and she gives them a big hug or handshake, and she looks them in the eyes and says, John, I am so glad you're in this classroom. This makes my heart very happy that you're here. Go put your backpack up. And then during circle time, when she's playing games and singing songs and doing finger play, she's looking at every single student individually and making individual contact because she believes in the power of the relationship. So she's using the whole idea of eye contact because I have taught her that in my workshop. Well, another teacher hears the same exact thing, use strong eye contact. And so she goes into her classroom and she says, all right, I'm glad you're here. Sit down on the carpet, sit down on the carpet. All the kids sit down. She starts to read a book and she stops in the middle of the book and does this. Really? Really? It's all right. I can wait on you. And she will sit there and stare a child down. Now here's what I'm going to tell you. That teacher used eye contact, and she's going to go back to her administrator and say, that man told me to use eye contact. You see, the strategy is the same. The problem is not strategy. The problem is perspective. Our inclination is to discipline kids the way we were disciplined many years ago. And I grew up in a generation of because I said so. Well, that's not as effective these days. So it's very important that step number 1, if we're trying to change behavior, is shifting perspective. Because we have a problem. You see, we commit a assume-icide. We assume that kids know what they're supposed to do and they should just do it. Well, that's not really the case. We've talked about the idea of because of more technology, because kids have different role models, because the family unit has changed, because of all of these factors, we can't just assume that they know what they're doing and they should be doing it. We have to shift our perspective, and we have to ask ourselves a very important question. If a 4-year-old child comes into my classroom and she does not know how to tie her shoe, what am I going to do? And you say, well, teach her, obviously. Okay, well, what if she doesn't get it? Then what are you going to do? And don't tell me I'm going to buy her Velcro. That is not the answer. No, what am I going to do? I'm going to teach it a different way. Well, what if she doesn't get it? Well, I'm going to teach her another way. What am I? So for step number 1 is what? Shifting your perspective. Well, step number 2 is this idea of if a child does not know how to tie his or her shoe, you teach them. Well, guess what? You have kids in your classroom that are coming in and they do not know how to keep their hands to themselves. And they don't know how to follow directions, and they don't know how to pay attention, and they don't know how to be a good friend. And guess what I'm going to tell you? All of those things are called skills. So if a child doesn't know how to tie their shoe, here's my question. When do you get to put them in timeout? And teachers say, what do you mean? Well, I've taught him how to tie his shoe. He's not doing it. He needs to go to timeout. And do you know what you would tell me? Dan, we don't punish children for skill deficits. Listen to what I just said. We don't punish children for skill deficits. If they don't know how to write their name, we teach them. If they don't know how to tie their shoe, we teach them. Well, here's what I'm going to tell you. If they don't know how to follow directions, teach them. If they don't know how to pay attention, teach them. If they don't know how to keep their hands to themselves, teach them. Step number 1, shift your perspective. Step number 2, teach skills. Teach them how to follow directions. Teach them how to pay attention. Teach them how to get attention appropriately. Teach them how to be a good friend. And guess what you will say to me? But they know what they're doing, they're just not doing it. Let's go back to a word called assumicide. Do not assume that kids have skills that they may not have. You may have had a lot of experience and practice demonstrating appropriate social skills. Kids that are coming to our classroom today are coming in with a different set of skills. So after we shift our perspective, we have to focus on teaching skills. And you say, he knows the skill. Just because you know the skill does not mean it's become a habit. Let's say you're at school. You're at school and someone calls you from home and says, pick up some milk. And you say, I'm going to go get the milk right away. You get in your car, you say, I'm going straight to the grocery store. I'm going to get the milk. You drive down the road and you look at the grocery store and say, I'm going to stop at the grocery store. And what do? You drive right past the grocery store and you go home. Well, what would happen if you got out of your car and you saw the person that asked you to get milk and they said, where's the milk? And you say, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't get it. How would you like it if they looked at you and said, well, that was a bad choice? And my question to you is this: was it a bad choice? Was the reason that you didn't get the milk because you were choosing to not get the milk? No. Why did you choose to not get the milk? Well, it wasn't a choice. You didn't get the milk because you forgot. Why did you forget? Because you go home, school, home, school, home, school every single day. Guess what that's called? That's called a habit. So rather than saying, how do I punish this child for not doing the right thing? Maybe a better question we need to be asking ourselves is, how do I help this child break that very bad habit? Step number 1, shift our perspective. Step number 2, teach skills. And when they don't get it, step number 3, help them break bad habits. You see, changing behavior and shaping behavior at the early childhood level is all about teaching skills and breaking habits. Step number 4 is probably the most important piece of it, and that is be patient. Behavior change takes time. It took the kids in your classroom 2, 3, 4 years to develop these behavioral habits. Do you think one behavioral strategy is going to change it overnight? A lot of times you're making behavioral changes, but if you don't see change right away, you get very, very frustrated. Well, here's what I'm going to tell you. You don't always see the fruits of your effort. Pre-K kids and kindergarten kids are not going to come back and say, you were the best pre-K teacher ever. Like, you don't get that feedback. 4th grade, 5th grade, 9th grade teachers, they get that feedback because when kids are older, they remember that. You don't get the feedback to understand that a lot of times you're making a huge difference, but developmentally those kids can't come back. But here's what I'm going to tell you. If you as an early childhood teacher lay a very, very strong foundation, if you lay a strong foundation that's based on healthy social, emotional, and ethical development, then you are going to ultimately really help kids actualize the hopes and dreams that their parents have. Now, I talk about that a lot. What do our parents want? They want them to be happy, well-adjusted, have lifelong friends, be productive citizens. You see, those are lifelong goals. And what I love about that is that if you were to look at me as a parent and say, Dan, I want my child to be happy and well-adjusted, I would never look at you at the end of the year as a parent and say, I'm sorry, I failed. Your child is not well-adjusted. Why? Because you cannot evaluate happy and well-adjusted in the course of 1 year. That's a whole lifelong goal. You can't evaluate that right away. So sometimes you're making huge progress, but that doesn't mean you're going to see the results of your efforts right away. If we want kids to be healthy and well-adjusted, we work on social, emotional, and ethical development in the context of a relationship. We work on teaching skills and breaking habits. Because when we do that, you're setting a huge behavioral foundation that teachers long after these kids have left your classroom will be able to build on. And really, what more could we ask for than that?